Welcome back to Chop to the Top, the series where I'm trading my way up from a cheap car to a supercar. Last time you saw me dealing with the 8th car in the series, a 2014 Ford Focus ST. The Focus was a lovely example and sold for £10,500. When combined with the unspent money I had remaining in the kitty, that meant I had a grand total of £12,166 moving forward to purchase and prepare car number 9. With that budget, I went out and bought a personal dream car, a 2006 Toyota Land Cruiser Amazon, which was overall quite straight but certainly needed some help being brought back to its best, so keep watching to see how I get to grips with the Land Cruiser. So with both bumpers now removed, I'm going to start with the worst of the two, which in my opinion is the rear bumper. You've seen some of the damage in the preview videos. I've got lots to sort out on it, and it's not too bad. This corner is definitely the worst. There's been a slight push impact on it. The main bit of damage is this lip here that is split and pulled away. Now that's quite firm, so I'm going to have to manipulate that back in and probably plastic weld it back together before making it good again. These reflectors, I'd like to take them out before I do all the work, but the fixings for them, as you'd imagine, are quite rusted, so I don't think they're going to come out. I'm going to give it one more try. If they don't, it's going to mean some pretty detailed masking, but that's a minor detail. The main job right now is to sort out the damage that has been done to these bumpers before I can prime them and obviously paint them. So that is the job, to crack on with this rear bumper. With the freshly refurbished wheels refitted and the new paint on the bumpers drying, now is a good time to give the underside and otherwise hidden areas of the Land Cruiser a good clean. Whilst doing this, I noticed that the rear bumper support plinth was not only slightly bent, but it was also heavily corroded in areas. Arguably, I could have left this as it will never be seen and it won't affect the refitting of the bumper, but as you'll know if you're a regular viewer of the channel, that's not how I do things. If I know it needs fixing, then I'll fix it. As these plinths seem to be nearly impossible to get hold of, I decided to repair the one I had before giving it a treatment of corrosion inhibitor, followed by a healthy coating of underseal before refitting to the Land Cruiser. The next area I wanted to deal with was the near side rear arch. As I mentioned when the Land Cruiser arrived in the previous episode, my intention was to get this damage fixed by a paintless dent removal specialist. However, having spoken to the local PDR guy, he told me that a paintless repair would be impossible. Therefore, my only option was to fill the damage and repaint. That wouldn't be a problem if this was the only slight mark on the bodywork, but I quickly realised that as there are a multitude of small marks on the bodywork of the Land Cruiser, if I fix and paint this small dent, I may as well do them all, and I would basically end up with every panel being resprayed. My solution was to effect a paintless dent removal of my own. I'll admit that this hasn't made the damage 100% invisible, but it's a lot better than it was initially, and it no longer catches the eye, so I'm happy with that. The next job on the list should have been the easiest, but as is sometimes the case, it turned out to be one of the more in-depth. The reason I can't stand to see some stickers on paintwork is because they can cause the base coat of the paint beneath them to change colour over the years when exposed to the sun's UV rays, and this Gustard sticker is no exception. The paint beneath is now tattooed with an impression of the sticker. To prove my point, I'll run the machine polisher over the area to show that the damage is not in the clear coat but it's in the base below. The only way to fix this is to repaint. Now that the outside of the Land Cruiser is looking a little fresher, it's time to send it out to have some service work done. I always make sure every vehicle that passes through my hands is up to speed with its service requirements, and in the case of this Land Cruiser, I'm leaving no stone unturned. Here are just a few of the service consumables that will be going into this truck. It will be receiving all new filters and fluids, a timing belt and tensioner, water pump, new gearbox fluids and a filter. Now that the seats have been removed, we can get a better look at the carpet. It's not that horrendous. Obviously there are marks here and there. It's a light coloured carpet and it's a 17-year-old vehicle, so not at all surprised by that. It doesn't actually smell in here. I said that in the last video. It doesn't smell bad at all, so that's good news. I don't think the truck's ever been smoked in, anything like that. So really the priority for me now is to get this carpet all cleaned up, do all the plastics, all the wood, and get everything sorted. Once the shell of the inside is totally clean and fresh, what I'm going to do is move on to sorting out the seats, get the leather cleaned up, some hide food put into them, make it all as good as it can be, put it all back together, and then that will be the interior finished. Now, although the interior of the Land Cruiser is in fine shape, there was one small area that let the side down. The driver's speaker grille fabric covering. It had become detached and it was looking a bit worse for wear, so that was next to be addressed. So we are getting to the final stages with the Land Cruiser. Overall, it's looking a lot better, as you can see. So it's time to deal with some of the small details, and one of those small details are these side steps. I love the steps themselves, but as you can see, over the years, the anodized coating on the top has been worn away by people using it. It's fair enough. The steps are in really good condition. I want to keep those. So what I'm going to do is recoat the top contact face of these steps. And what I've chosen to do that is this. It is a product from Raptor. You've probably heard of Raptor Liner. This is their multi-use protective coating. Now, this will be the first time I'm actually using it on a project, but I've heard really, really good things. And what I'm hoping is this tough, non-slip presumably coating is going to go on these steps. It will not only make them look a lot fresher, but it will help to give them a much more robust finish, and it will help to lift the look of the truck. I think it's the small details that count, and this is one of those details that needs to be addressed. So I'm going to crack on with that now. Right guys, I just got finished with the underside of the Land Cruiser. I've just finished wax oiling it, so I'm going to give you a little tour of how it looks under here. I'm really pleased with it. It's very solid. It's free from any hideous corrosion or anything like that. So we'll start at the front. It may look a little shiny in places because, as I say, I've just finished the wax oil under here, but everything is looking so tidy. Now, this was more of a case of prevention rather than cure because, as I've said before, the chassis and the underside of the Land Cruiser were in really nice shape. So there was no real fixes to do under here. It was just a case of cleaning up surfaces and as I say, wax oiling to make sure it stays nice for the new owner. I'm really pleased with it under here. Now, the exhaust may look a little bit edgy. I couldn't put any wax on there, obviously, because it'll heat up and it'll burn off. So that's staying as is. There are no holes, there's no really dodgy parts of the exhaust, so I'm more than happy to leave that. All the cross members are good, chassis legs are good, rear end is good, all the shafts are good. Everything is looking really good under here. So it may look a little shiny, as I say, because the wax oil is quite literally fresh as a daisy. I just did it about half an hour ago, but I'm really pleased with this one. As you know, I've done several Hiluxes and they're always eaten alive. But this Land Cruiser is in fantastic shape. I mean, look at that fuel tank guard. Normally they're eaten alive, but this one's so nice. So now that it's been wax oiled, basically I'm hoping that the new owner won't have any issues for a long time, which is a great result. Perfect. So that is it, guys. The Land Cruiser is now finished, and I've got to be honest and say I am more in love with this truck now than ever. When it came in, I was very fond of it, as you know, and I knew then it was going to be one I wouldn't want to sell. I would want to keep for myself, and I wasn't wrong. Now that it's finished, genuinely, this is going to be a real pull to get rid of this one. Not because it'll be hard to sell. I believe it will sell very quickly, and I think it'll probably sell to the first person who bothers to come and see it. But it'll be hard for me personally because having always wanted one and now having got my hands on one and made it in what is, my opinion, the best it can be, I am really not wanting to see this one go. I'd love to be able to keep it myself. But as always, this is chopped to the top, and if I don't sell it, we can't move forward and keep on the road along to that supercar. So I will get it together, I'll get it sold, and I'll have to deal with it. I'll just have to promise myself that one day I'll have one for myself for keeps, and we'll go from there. But I'm going to show you around the truck a little bit and show you what I've done and how it's looking now. I think you'll agree, looking at it here on this beautiful sunny day, it is looking $1 million. It is really such a lovely example. It's just, it was all right when it came in. It wasn't that bad, but now it's just, dare I say, nearly perfect. It's I can't say perfect because of course it is a used vehicle, but wow, it's close. I'm going to walk and talk and do a little bit of a show and tell on the car and show you the bits I've done. I'll start at the front. Now, you may remember the grille. Let's start with the obvious bits. The grille, that was really in a bad state. It was all flaky. So these grills from the factory on this generation of Land Cruiser, they have gold slats. There is no paint code available for the gold they used. So what I've done, I've gone for the palest gold I could find, which in this case is forged champagne gold. Now, when I first sprayed that grille, I thought I may have overdone it, it's a bit too gold, but I've got to tell you, looking at it now, combined with that dark grey metallic paintwork, it just sets the front of this truck off so well, and I'm really pleased with it. So that's the standard grille, just refinished in forged champagne gold. I'm absolutely loving that. Staying at the front, you may remember the fog lights. The one on the right of the car, that was pretty knackered. It was full of mud and flood water and whatever else. I was going to change just the one, but then I know what would happen if I changed one. The one that looked alright originally would then look rubbish. So we've changed the pair, and I've also upgraded the bulbs in both fog lights. So they work, they look good, they do their job, and again, really pleased with that. Staying at the front, this headlight washer, you may remember, was completely missing. It was ripped off the original bumper, so that has been replaced. That's all functional, of course, so happy with that. It looks standard, it works as it should. The front bumper itself, like the rear bumper, had some damage. So, as mentioned before, these are big vehicles and someone had just been sort of bumping into things when they parked, I believe. So both bumpers have come off and they've been sprayed. Well, before being sprayed, they were actually repaired. The back bumper especially was in quite a sorry state. So that's all been sorted, it's all been fixed. You've seen that in the video already, but that's what's been done. Now you may notice in this video, you think there's a slight colour difference between the bumper and the body. That is correct. The front bumper, the rear bumper and this side strip are a different paint tone to the body itself. The body is Toyota Dark Grey Metallic 1E9. Now the bumpers are a different colour entirely. That was an optional spec. Difficulty being, when repairing these bumpers, the code for those, the paint code for those bumpers wasn't written on the vehicle anywhere. It wasn't stated anywhere. So what I've done, I've gone to my local paint shop, had them scan the original paint on those bumpers and had it paint matched. So it's such a close colour that it may look like a mistake in spraying, but when you take into account that side strip, it all comes together. So whoever spec'd this car originally wanted the dark grey bodywork with even darker grey bumpers, so that's what we stuck with. I think they look great. I'm really happy with them. I think if I'd done them in standard body colour, it might look a little bit sameish, so I am glad I stuck with what the original purchaser of this vehicle had gone for. Next big ticket item was the wheels. You will remember they were very, very heavily corroded in a really, really nasty state. Well, as mentioned in the beginning of the last video, they were sent out completely blasted and repowder coated by a local firm, and they've done a really, really nice job. I've stuck with silver because I wanted them to stay nice and bright, because it's a fairly dark truck with this shade of grey, so having bright silver wheels I feel really helps to lift the overall image. Again, really pleased with that decision. They're looking on point and I'm so pleased with them. Small item, side steps. As I mentioned before, these are the original steps. I really like the steps, but they'd lost their anodized finish on the top. Made the whole truck look a little bit tired, so we've got a Raptor coating on the top of those steps, which is, it not only looks the part, it's grippy, it's tough wearing, so great for side steps, and I think that'll last and continue to make the truck look fantastic for years to come. Moving down the side, as mentioned, I've kept the tints in the rear of the vehicle. Not necessarily my cup of tea personally, but I think now that the truck is finished and it's all shiny and bright, it does really, really look the business. I'm happy with that. I'm happy that I left them on there, because I think whoever buys this may well really value having those tinted windows in the rear. As part of what I did, I went under the truck, made sure everything was solid, and part of that was rear arches. Now they were totally solid, but what I've done is cleaned everything up, rust treated it, and treated it to a new coating of U-Pol Gravitex. So they again are generally common areas to rust on these trucks. Luckily these were solid, but hopefully with that treatment and coating they're going to remain solid for a long time to come. We'll keep moving around and we'll come on to that famous rear bumper that was so badly smashed. Now what had happened was the bumper had not only been scuffed against things, it had been backed into things, so the profiles, these corners had been sort of crumpled. It's a bit of a concertina effect, so I had to fix all of that before I could paint the bumpers, but no issue. It was a little bit extra work, but it was done. The small item around the back is the lock bezel. That was missing. Again, I mentioned I already had that ordered as soon as I bought this vehicle, and that was clearly an easy one to fit. What was a bit of a gremlin, you will remember there was a sticker here on the rear, a Gustard sticker, because as I said before, this vehicle, to my knowledge, was used as transport for someone to go skiing in Switzerland, hence no tow bar and the light wear everywhere else. So good news in lots of ways, but that sticker with Gustard written on it was black and white. Now, having been stuck on the paintwork, which is of course a big no-no in my book, the UV rays over the years had tattooed essentially the base coat, so removing that sticker was no good. We basically had a tattoo of the sticker as it was right there on the paint. No amount of buffing will ever get rid of that, because it's in the base coat, not the clear coat. So what I've had to do, this whole top tailgate has been resprayed and colour matched to the 1E9 shade of dark grey metallic. I'm really, really pleased with how that's come out. You'd never know that that's been resprayed. It looks absolutely perfect in my opinion. And I mean, I could have left that sticker there, or I could have covered it up with a, you know, a GB sticker or something, but once again, I always say this, I like to do things properly, and that's why it had to go and it had to be resprayed, and we had to start with this nice fresh look on the truck. So again, a little bit more work than I was anticipating, but I'm very, very glad I did it. Now I'm looking at the truck just like this. Talking of extra work, I mentioned before we had a couple of little dents here. I spoke to a local PDR firm who did not want to know, basically. They, to be fair to them, it is a tricky area to get to. They said they wouldn't be able to do any PDR work, so I'd be better to factor in working on that, filling it, respraying it. fair enough, I thought. But then I looked around the truck and there's lots of tiny little pin dents pretty much on every panel, as you'd expect from a car of the age. Nothing too horrendous, but basically every panel's got a little bit of something on it. So if I were to work on that, get that filled and resprayed, that's a quarter. Well, okay, might as well do the doors. Okay, then I'll do the wings and the bonnet. And where does it stop? So what I did is a little bit of minor PDR work myself. I'm absolutely by no means a PDR engineer, but I got them out, these dents on that arch out a little bit, so they're not too bad. They're a lot better than they were. It's kind of in line with the marks that are on the rest of the truck. It's what I would call an honest example. So whoever comes to see this vehicle, I'm sure they will forgive it a few minor flaws like that, given it is so good in every other respect. So yes, a little bit of work done on the dents, but nothing was so horrendous that it warranted proper bodywork, if you know what I'm saying. And I think just doing a little bit of work there on that arch has brought it to a level I'm happy with. Now, aside from making it look pretty, I often get comments asking about, do I bother to service these vehicles before I sell them? Of course I do. I don't do it myself because I am not a mechanic. I can do the basics, but with vehicles like this that I'm selling, I like to keep the service history up to date and official. So what I've had done, this had absolutely every bit of service work done on it. It's had full engine service, so oil, filters, it's had a cam belt. Furthermore, the gearbox has had a service. Now, oftentimes people just don't bother to service these gearboxes. It's an automatic, and I guess people sort of forget about them. So that's all been serviced, new filters, new fluid, everything. And it drove lovely anyway, but of course it drives like silk now. So I'm really happy with that. Cost a little bit of money to get that done, but it's nice to be able to say to the new owner, you've got no worries, everything has been serviced, everything's been looked after, you've got a long time before you need to concern yourself with these things again. So I'll take you inside and show you how we're looking there. Okay, so inside, first thing to note, we've got new overmats. Now, of course, I did clean the carpets as thoroughly as possible. Of course, they're never going to be brand new, but you recall there was quite a few muddy stains here. It's all gone. It's all a lot better than it was. So the carpet, the main carpet of the vehicle is absolutely fine. But I have invested in a brand new set of tailored overmats, which is front, middle and rear. So that should help to protect that nice light coloured carpet for the future. The seats themselves, as mentioned before, remarkably good condition. No cigarette burns, no rips, nothing like that. But everything has been fully cleaned, and it's had leather treatment. So the leather's feeling supple and soft, and it's really, honestly, such a lovely place to sit. Other than that, all the plastics had a bit of a clean up. There wasn't really any damage anywhere to sort in here, so that was that made a nice change. But it's just such a lovely cabin. Moving into the rear area of the Land Cruiser, I have refitted those two rear seats. So that's a 6th and a 7th seat refitted. They were chucked in loose, if you remember. They will fold up and get out of the way, so that boot area is still usable. But I'm going to leave these fitted for the new owner. If they want to remove them in the future and have even more boot space, that's completely up to them. I'm going to sell it with them fitted, and that's their choice. Everything in the back is perfect. The DVD player does work. I don't have a DVD in there at the moment to demonstrate it, but everything works. Aircon works, of course. Everything electronically in here works as it should. Not all that surprising for a Toyota, but it's just such a nice change to be able to say with a used vehicle, everything works. So I'm very pleased. So as I mentioned, this one is now finished and ready to go. The service has been done, the cleanup has been done, all bodywork, paintwork, everything is finished and ready to go. The only thing I'm waiting on before I can advertise it is sending it off to MOT, which is in a few days' time. I have got absolutely no worries about this one. I'm certain it will pass first time. Needless to say, if there is anything hiding that I've missed and it fails on that, it'll be done before the vehicle is sold. But as I say, it's probably not going to be the case. I think this one's going to fly through. So as soon as I've got that new MOT on it, this will be getting advertised. And I mentioned earlier, I personally think it's going to sell very quickly. I think whoever deigns to come and see this thing first, if they're serious about Land Cruisers, and especially if they've been to see any others first, so they can really appreciate how good this one is, I honestly think this will go to the first person who views it. It's just such a perfect vehicle. I just wish there was a way I could keep this for myself. But I've got to stay strong. That's not what we're going to do. It is going to get sold. And when it does, I will let you know.
Because this is chopped to the top, I generally give you a breakdown of what each vehicle has cost me to get fully prepared once it is sold. In the case of the Land Cruiser, I've just advertised it, so as yet it has not sold. As soon as it finds a new home, I'll do an update explaining all costs, what it eventually sells for, and ultimately what the budget is moving forward to the next vehicle, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.